Welcome to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., and Jesse Cofield. We are brought to you by Wrangler, made for the ride of life. Save 15% in your first Wrangler.com order with promo code GOJO15. Got a great show for you guys. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review. Leave us a 5-star rating and check us out on the DraftKings YouTube channel, DraftKingsNetwork.com, Samsung TV Plus, Roku, and all the other places that our wonderful music is bopping and banging here. Got some good guests for you guys today. Washington Commanders cornerback Danny Johnson going to stop by here, as well as 49ers offensive lineman Matt Pryor, as we take a look and put a bow on this last weekend in the NFL. And Dad, no more fitting way to do that than with the slop that we watched last night. My God, somewhere in the midst of Monday Night Football, a Big Ten West game broke out as the Chargers and the Jets played one of the more forgettable offensive outings you'll ever see. The Chargers win 27-6, but Dad, it hardly feels like there was any winner for anyone who had to watch last night.
So the two worst games this year have been Giants and Jets, and now Jets and Chargers. So the Jets have been part of two of them. So congratulations to them for being part of the two dreckiest games there have been in the NFL. And you sit there and you look at this one, and you're like, 27-6, wow, the Chargers must have just rolled it up on the Jets. The Jets actually outgained the Chargers in this game. They outgained them. I mean, the total yards, the Jets had 270. The Chargers didn't even get to 200. They didn't even get to 200 yards, though we had a couple records set on the offensive side that we'll talk about with Herbert and Keenan Allen. This was a game where just the Jets were awful as far as they had 8 penalties. They had 4 fumbles. They lost 3 of them. 2 of them set up touchdowns. One just a yard run, the other a short field, a punt return for a touchdown. Just absolutely ugly. And it all started off again with Aaron Rodgers in pregame, taking a 3-step drop and throwing a 55-yard pass down the field for everybody going, ooh, we're going to get Aaron back for the playoffs. A, you're not getting Aaron back, and B, it doesn't look like you're making the playoffs anyway, so deal with that one.
I feel like Aaron really enjoys the attention that comes with that moment each and every week. We hear from the broadcast booth about how they talk to Aaron, and he feels good about his timeline there. And then obviously everybody parachutes back into reality where we realize, this is probably not going to happen. And Dad, the reality for fans in New York and really for that organization today is going to be the growing tide of voices that look over at what the Minnesota Vikings did, bringing in Josh Dobbs on a few days' notice and having a quarterback that somehow was able to go out there and get them a win, albeit against the Atlanta Falcons, but looking at the Jets and saying, we asked you for so long, take a look at anybody outside of this organization to try and come in and supplement what Zach Wilson was doing. It's not to say that it's all Zach's fault, but it's also not a quarterback that's going to give you a meaningful chance each and every week. You keep talking about development that supposedly happened with Aaron Rodgers in training camp. You keep selling us on that growth, and all the while you've got a defense that, Dad, you would probably know this better than anybody, has to be looking across the aisle going, what more do you want us to do? Because while I understand the sack numbers haven't totally been there for the Jets, they've been disruptive. They've been by multiple outlets considered a top 10 defense, despite the fact that there has been 0 complimentary football played. So, Dad, you could speak to that, but I can't imagine the frustration of being in the Jets side of that locker room, or the defensive side of that Jets locker room.
It certainly happened in Philly, and I talked a lot about defense running on the field, offense running off the field, and the glares that would happen, some of the things that would start to happen in the locker room, again, with real A personalities of the Eagles teams that I was on. It wasn't pretty at times. And this is something, and we said it then, because I know some people were like, well, make a move for who? Well, make a move for a veteran, something. Now, I have no idea if it would have changed anything, but to just have that another set of eyes, legs, arms, in case you needed that person on the field, it almost seemed like they were trying to protect Zach Wilson of, we're not going to mess with your mind. You're the guy, and we're not even going to bring in anybody else because we feel you're the guy.
Why?
And listen,
why?
Mike, for years, all I've heard about at times from former quarterbacks a lot of times is, man, protect their mental side, pat him on the back, don't kick him in the butt. And I'm like,
oh no,
man,
I get that for a quarterback who you expect to be your guy or you expect to be good or is good. But for Zach Wilson at this point, I just don't understand why you would feel the need to protect this player after you went out in an offseason and brought Aaron Rodgers in and clearly already showed him what you thought of him.
Completely agree. But I think it went to the point where Aaron is not coming back. He's gone because Aaron wasn't a 3-week injury, so he wasn't on the horizon of coming back. He's out. Zach, it's all you. We trust you, buddy. And I don't understand not making a move at all because I'm with you. That defense, as you said, don't have some of the numbers. They did have 5 sacks last night, though the Chargers had 8. It is an excellent defense. It really is. But they just don't have anything on offense. Breece Hall at times looks really good on offense, but Garrett Wilson we like. But, man, he had a bad fumble, then a couple of sack fumbles as well, caused by Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. Because we talked about before this game the amount of sacks that they had. Well, Khalil had 7 going to the game, but 6 in one game. So they needed to keep bringing the pressure, though they had 23 sacks going into this game. They were bad against the bat. This is the worst pass defense in the NFL that the Jets were going against and really couldn't get things. Though Zach, I mean, you sit there and look at numbers. He threw for 263. I'm trying to remember, Mike, because I'm so naturally looking at and seeing at least one number in one of the columns, and I'm sure it's happened a lot sooner than I had even thought. And maybe I'll just look it up really quick. The last time we had a game where there was no touchdowns and no interceptions by each quarterback. No touchdowns, which I get, but no interceptions either. So basically nothing out of the quarterbacks.
Yeah, that's what it felt like for large portions of last night. And you said the quiet part very loud there. It's because neither team could really protect their quarterback from what was coming in this game. On both sides, I would say, in large part for the Jets defensively, that's just a great group. Bryce Huff was giving me anxiety on the edge. Rashawn Slater's a really good tackle in the NFL, and he had his hands full the entire night with 47 in green and white, which gave way to a lot of the rest of their guys finding their way up there. Jermaine Johnson, obviously Quinnen Williams is a bear on the interior where the Chargers were weakest. And then, Dan, on the other side for the Jets, you mentioned that trio, really, for the Los Angeles Chargers. Joey Bosa, who's finally healthier, Khalil Mack, who we've seen show up, Tuli Tuipulotu, the rookie out of USC, who had a big night as well, each notched at least 2 sacks in this game, going up against the Jets offensive line that had reshuffled again, that now had guys moving around in different spots. And what you saw for both teams, Dad, was a lot of games and stunts and movement up front that these groups really had trouble getting through. And for the Jets, I kind of understand, because when you're constantly moving guys around, Mekhi Becton now out at left tackle, and some of the other bodies that you've had to shuffle for yet another combination of guys, that communication, that lack of time together in those specific spots, the place where that usually shows up the most is on games, because part of it is you guys have to recognize things the same way pre-snap and identify it in a way that you can both work with, and then be able to communicate through and work with that post-snap. And that stuff just requires reps that they don't have. And so that part of it was understandable. But what wasn't understandable was the way the Jets went about trying to mitigate that. Dad, I don't know how much of the Manning cast you watched last night, where we got, thankfully, a game tailor-made for that kind of broadcast here.
Yes,
with Arnold Schwarzenegger bringing on his miniature donkey in this game. And Eli Manning, I feel like Eli Manning is going to still be waking up this morning and writing an angry letter to his congressman because the Jets wouldn't send chip help. That's all he wanted, was for the Jets to send chip help against some of these rushers to try and give Zach Wilson time. And they wouldn't do that for Eli Manning, and I felt badly for him.
I am amazed at times, Mike, of in an era of chess match or kind of countering what a team does, because I'm with you. I have seen more D-line stunts this year that have gotten home than I have in a long time. And you are absolutely correct when it's especially a new line combination. That is one of the best ways to try and screw them up, is by running the stunts. There was a game a few years ago or another play, and I'm completely drawing a blank. I think Atlanta was involved, that there was one player had a 6-sack game, and he kept rushing one-on-one on the left tackle, and they never helped him. Never helped. I was watching, going, again, what Eli was doing. What are you doing? you're getting roasted here time and time again. And basically what you're getting out of the offense is, this is the way we run it. You just have to perform on the field. When it's not working, you have to adjust. You have to adjust somehow, some way to help out what's not working. You have to be able to do that or you're going to die. And we saw that last night.
And I think that's the micro level. And then the macro level, what everybody is asking about this New York Jets team is, we're the definition of insanity right now. And I understand you've gotten a couple of wins in the interim, but for both of these teams, you've been really outside of game one for the New York Jets, where you got over on the Buffalo Bills. You've been feasting on weaker teams. The Jets did also pull it off somehow, some way, looking back now against the Eagles a couple of games ago.
They did.
Outside of that, there really hasn't been much to write home about in this season. So for them, they continue to look longingly over at the sidelines. We also heard after the game, I believe, from Rob Saleh talking about Zach Wilson here. Can we pull that sound up for the Jets head coach talking about the quarterback that they refused to go off of?
I don't know if you could say step back. There's, like I said, it's all encompassing. Like, obviously he's going to want some things that he wishes he could have done better. From protection to it's just a little bit of everything. It's just one of those bizarre games that just every time we had momentum. Like I said, just a self-inflicted wound. Was it his best game? Obviously not. Was it his worst game? No, I'm not going to say it was even close to his worst game.
And, Dad, you know this. One, I feel like the cameras are now trained on Rob Saleh every time there's a Jets game, just for a new meme that's going to drop, because that man looks dead inside most times when they pan over to him on the sideline. Might just be his face. But, Dad, you can see there's frustration with him, but I'd have to imagine not making a move or not doing something to change up what you've got at that position in particular has to erode some of the confidence of the rest of this locker room. Because in any other position on the field, if you're not performing, they generally tend to replace you pretty quickly. But for some reason, Zach Wilson, maybe some fealty to the former two next to his name in the draft column, I don't know what. Maybe he's a nice guy. I want him to succeed. It's not like I'm rooting against Zach Wilson, but anyone else would have been replaced at this point. When you're another guy on that team looking around wondering why I'm busting my ass and doing my job to try and go out here and give us a chance to win, and at that spot in particular, allowing for the fact that the offensive line certainly not helping a ton, but we're not doing something to change it. It's got to be maddening for everybody involved, and I don't know how much longer this lasts at this rate.
8 games, under 60% completion, 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. I'm with you. And the people that know it the most, and the place you lose the most, is the locker room, because players are the best of reading the writing on the wall. And I'm sure they are questioning, and they'll never say it publicly. They're going to back their guy, but what the hell are we doing? We have a great defense. We have time now. And listen, everybody deals with injuries. Now, losing your starting quarterback and a future Hall of Famer when you kind of laid everything on the line for him, I get it. It's a little bit different, but that doesn't mean you just pack it in. I mean, that's why we'll still go down talking about why didn't they make some move, again, not to say that it would have made all the difference in the world, but make some move to show that, hey, we're going to try something here because we believe in the talent on this team. And it's just not happening right now, and now they're stuck. Once the trade deadline passed, nobody's getting traded through that door. Nobody's walking in unless they want to pull some free agent off the street now. But there should have been something done right away at the very least by the trade deadline. But before that, picking up someone to get a veteran in the locker room, even if you made a trade later as well. But nothing done. So now I get the joy this Sunday of call for Westwood One, calling the Sunday night game. Jets at Raiders. Jets seeing if they can have any kind of offense against the Raiders, and the Raiders putting a bunch of boxes of cigars in the middle of the room and saying, we're going to smoke cigars again as we try and go 2-0 under Antonio Pierce.
Yeah, I mean, this seems like the kind of game where the Jets could have a chance, and unfortunately delays what should be done with this team. And Dad, I'll be interested to see what the conversation is then about Rob Saleh, because at some point as the head coach, you're tied to what happens and the output at this position. And Aaron Rodgers coming back, I still won't put realistic terms on this season, but next season is going to be really important for Rob Saleh because last year we got a little bit of taste of success with this Jets team that made you wonder, okay, would they be players in the offseason? They went and did the thing. This year now, post Aaron Rodgers, it's obviously been bad, but you've got to start to see something next season. So, Jesse, do we get our weekly look at Aaron Rodgers here and the weekly report about what he's saying his prognosis is?
Yeah, so I just want to say, obviously we saw he arrives at the stadium without crutches. He's, doing the pregame 3-step drops, throwing 55 plus yards in front of everybody, showing off here. It's been like 7-ish weeks after his surgery. I gotta say, so we heard the plot thickens a little bit here, GoJo. I don't know what your take on this is, but Chargers safety Derwin James asked him, he said post-game, when you coming back? And Rodgers responded, a few weeks.
Yeah.
Well,
a few weeks. A few weeks. I'm just saying, I feel like, I don't know. I'm saying there's a chance.
I will say,
I feel like I'm being gaslit.
Listen, I'm going down the road you're on, but in this day and age, to see an Achilles injury and to see someone back, even walking around and even doing the little bit that he's doing is pretty impressive. I mean, normally that is just a shutdown injury for a while and you're back in a year. It has been impressive. That being said, there's a hell of a lot of difference in what he's doing to what he needs to be doing. I still don't see any way he comes back because the Jets are going to struggle, I think, making the playoffs, and that's going to have a lot to do with it. That's going to be the thing, though, is if the Jets don't get to the playoffs, Aaron's going to be like, and I would have been ready to go. I'm ready to go. If the playoffs are going on, I'd be ready to go. He'd be saying that, and there's no way to disprove that then, right?
It's like arguing about high school teams matching up against each other in college football locker rooms. We're never going to play these games, and so I can go to town on this argument. But for Aaron Rodgers, too, I mean, there's the other side of this. While we've been critical of Zach Wilson because we know replacing the quarterback is the easiest way to try and spark things overall, to change the most and affect the most in the body of the game, it's not all his fault. Like putting Aaron Rodgers post-Achilles back in this season behind the current Jets offensive line would also probably be coaching malpractice because you'd potentially be sacrificing him for the next season where you're trying to get him back for the whole thing. So it's all a mess in New York, but it ultimately is rightly going to come back to criticism of leadership for not doing anything. We're not saying there's a specific something that was a solve for everything. I'm not saying the Minnesota Vikings are going to go on some sort of massive win streak here post-acquiring Josh Dobbs and putting him in the lineup. But at the very least, the Minnesota Vikings were on a 4-game win streak, had their quarterback get injured, looked at the surroundings and said, we'll do something. And that something immediately panned out in a way that nobody could have possibly dreamed of there. And that's got to be the maddening thing if you're the Jets, is they saw a team that had potential and they gave them an opportunity. And why couldn't our organization have done that for us? I get the quarterback situations were different on the roster, but still it boils down to that fact there. So that's going to be the sad reality for New York Jets. I'd imagine the local radio shows, Dad, just pop open the call-in line and let him cook this morning.
Easy day. Open the lines, easy day. Quickly, let's jump to the Chargers, who now, you sit there and look at the division leaders. After that, you have a 4-loss Bills, 4-loss Jets, 3-loss Steelers, 3-loss Browns, 4-loss Texans, and then a 4-loss Chargers. Their fans have to be like, who the hell are we? And they're just kind of each week you're wondering what's going on. But let's give a congratulations, Justin Herbert, who actually had a really bad night, 16 of 30 for 136 yards, but against a really good defense. But he got his 1,500th completion in 57 games. That passes the record set by a tie between Patrick Mahomes and Matthew Stafford. So congrats there. And also congrats to Keenan Allen on a great one-handed catch in the fourth quarter that put him over 10,000 receiving yards. He is the 54th player in NFL history to go over 10,000 yards. And one other Charger has done it, and that is one Antonio Gates at just under 12,000 yards. So congrats to both those guys on the win and those milestones.
Yeah, it's certainly nice to find those moments in the midst of a season that's been really challenging for those guys. I still don't ultimately think they're a playoff team right now in the AFC based on what we've seen from them play-wise, but they're keeping themselves within shouting distance. That's about all you can ask for at this point.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Another day, another update on the Michigan saga. The tea just keeps spilling. So it is official now at this point. The Big Ten formally notified Michigan that it could be facing disciplinary action from the league. A Michigan official told this to ESPN. So, I mean, kind of like, duh, obviously we were expecting that. Now, Michigan's AD, Ward Manuel, won't travel for the CFP meeting this week. Guys, probably because he's dealing with the fallout of this situation, wouldn't really be welcome in that room, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
oh, he's not going to go. He's
awkward.
Really busy.
Yeah, it would be awkward when we walked in the room. Yeah, everybody would kind of be looking at him as they were talking to themselves. Yeah, he'd feel like the outcast. Yeah. Sorry, I got something else to do this time around, guys. Can't make it.
Yeah, he's trying to figure out what exactly this disciplinary action is going to look like, because outside of some awkward vibes, where he is, if anyone's unfamiliar, one of the 13 members of the College Football Playoff Committee this year. So he was there last week when the first round of rankings came out. We've got the second round of rankings coming up tonight, and he has decided they normally have the process. When you talk about a team that someone on the committee has ties to, they're recused. So they step out of the room, which I have to imagine was a welcome respite for old Ward last week to get to leave the room when everyone was going to go and talk their ish about Michigan. But now this week, Dad, he's got to brace for what might possibly happen here. And I've seen and heard some people hypothesize, would the Big Ten consider suspending Jim Harbaugh for the next couple of games, which could include this weekend against Penn State in what's seen as Michigan's first real test, and use that as a way to show that they're serious about punishing, because you got the rest of the Big Ten very loudly campaigning for something to happen, and then still allowing Michigan to be available for the Big Ten championship, not affecting anything with the CFP, and then put it on the NCAA from there. As you would always say, Dad, Pontius Pilate themselves after this and wash their hands of it.
So I love Ward Manuel's quote about not going to the meetings. He says, quote, because I'll be attending to important matters regarding the ongoing investigation into our football program from my office that smells of mahogany with many leather-bound books. I mean, my God, seriously. You're just going to get a phone call anyway, Ward. You can get the phone call down where the meetings are. Mike, this is how mad. So all these ADs started complaining. Coaches, we saw the Purdue coach complain publicly. And how about that drive-by handshake after that game between he and Harbaugh after Michigan smoked them? So the ADs are complaining. The coaches are mad, though. They better be careful how mad, because as we saw from some other articles, everybody's doing this, though not to the rule-breaking extent that Michigan did it. Are the ADs
for anybody unaware, there was an AP report Dad is referencing that came out that an ex-Big Ten staffer reportedly handed Michigan evidence that other schools had been passing around documents containing Michigan stolen and decoded signs from the last couple of seasons, basically saying they felt like Michigan was being unfairly targeted, which, Dad, to your point, doesn't change anything, because we've acknowledged through this entire process everybody's doing some version of this. Sign stealing is not really the issue. It's how you went about ascertaining those sides, and the fact that for Michigan it involved using a guy with a very obvious porn name going and putting on disguises on other teams' sidelines to videotape things.
That's exactly right. You can sign steal. It's not against the rules to sign steal if you do it a certain way, and Michigan didn't do that. So I would have to imagine, Mike, and I'd said this before, and I hadn't read anything since to change my mind, when all the ADs are in an uproar saying, you got to punish him now. And I thought the only ways they could were a fine, which would be meaningless, or suspending the coach, which to me will be meaningless if it's just the regular season. So if the Big Ten calls, Ward and says, listen, Harbaugh's out the next two games. Mike, it's not going to matter in the Penn State game. Michigan is way better than Penn State. Penn State doesn't get the ball down the field vertically. Michigan is a better team. Michigan's going to beat them by double digits. It's not going to matter if Harbaugh misses the next 2 regular season games. The only effect it would have had is if they said, Michigan, you are not eligible for postseason play. And I don't know if they have the ability to do that, Mike. I've only read suspension and fine. So I'm wondering, are the ADs going to be in an uproar when they hear he's suspended for 2 games and then this thing goes away until the NCAA decides it in 2026, which I'm not being facetious about that. That's probably when they'll lay down their penalty for this. So all the complaining by the ADs, if you get a 2-game regular season suspension out of it, Mike, do you think these ADs will be satisfied?
I don't think there's going to be anything that satisfies, but I think for the Big Ten, this is more just about, I likened it yesterday to when a little kid has handed dinner and just moves the food around on their plate and then hands it back to their parents to act like, oh, look, I ate my vegetables. I did what you were going to do. And the parents are exhausted and just go along with the charade because they're tired too and don't want to have to reckon with this. It feels like we might be getting to that point, because I know I'm exhausted hearing these headlines pop up every other day for what's turned into one of the dumbest, funniest, most college football events in my recent history. And so I could imagine, hey, everyone might look at this and say, all right, you did something, or at least tried to, within the bounds of what you're allowed to do. Michigan would obviously fight back on all this stuff and could probably kick the can down the road even further on this. And then from there, it's a process that everyone knows is faulty and flawed with the NCAA. So, no, Dad, I don't think everybody would be happy. I don't think there's a solution where everybody would be happy here. And for Tony Petitti, the new Big Ten commissioner, I think this would be the closest that you could get to at least showing people, I tried to do something in my first week on the job, it feels like.
So now let's go back, Mike, to our playing modes when we were playing in college, and think about the players and what this does to them. I'm telling you, all they're doing is just batting the beehive with these players. You talk to a couple, Zach Zinter, one of their offensive linemen. I haven't really paid too much attention to it, but I mean, if someone wants to think we're the villain, I mean, that I'm fine being the villain. Sometimes the villain wins and takes down the superhero. So if that's the case, let's be the villain. Other players talked about, while we don't pay attention to this, you know what? We still hear it, and basically saying we're going to take it out on everybody else, because this doesn't affect the players on the team. This is adults around the players who are getting in trouble for doing adult things too much that break the rules, and then the players sometimes suffer for this. But this is one where, as long as there's not a postseason ban, the players aren't going to suffer, because I'm going to tell you again, if Harbaugh misses the next 2 games, it's not going to mean anything. He missed the first 3. Now, remember, he was allowed at practice all week long and just wasn't there for the game. Yeah. It's not going to matter. And these players, Mike, are definitely just, you would be doing it. I would be doing it. Everybody in the locker room would be like, all right, this is what they think of us. Let's go show them. Let's go pound them into the dirt. And, oh, by the way, they have the ability to pound you into the dirt. So these players are just jumping on this and riding it.
Oh, listen, that's what you do. Like, I remember going into 2012, Rick Riley, who was still writing that back page article in Sports Illustrated that I loved reading all the time, put out the article before the season, the "Is Notre Dame relevant?" the word that became the association with us for the rest of that entire season. So much so that Rick actually put it out there that if Notre Dame went undefeated, he would come in and help us polish the helmets, which, to his credit, a man of his word, he did at the end of the season after we had gone and done that. But every week it was that discussion about us. And you're right, it wasn't the bulletin board material that we talked about every day, but it was in the back of your mind of, this is what people think of you. And so you've got an opportunity to go out every weekend and prove them wrong. Michigan, according to DraftKings Sportsbook, by the way, going into this game, I believe is a 4.5-point road favorite right now against Penn State. We know Happy Valley's a really difficult place to go play. It's an unbelievable atmosphere and college environment. But, Dad, we saw how that game went last year, and I'm with you that this is kind of shuffling deck chairs, because ultimately I believe this is a Penn State team that was more built to beat Ohio State than they are to beat Michigan right now. You mentioned going full heel, though. Did you see who they brought in the other day to talk to the team?
Oh, yeah. Awesome.
Ric Flair showed up into the building right now, which, as many people have pointed out, man, if you want to try and dodge allegations of cheating, probably not the guy to bring in as the speaker for the team, the nature boy hanging out with you in the middle of all of this scandal.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Ric Flair he's living his best life now and not getting hurt in the ring anymore.
Yeah, no, he's living his best life, and the Michigan Wolverines are getting ready to weaponize all of this. As again, ultimately, it doesn't really matter that much. So coming up next, let's get to the stuff that does matter, coming off one of the better weekends of college football this season.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Let's turn our attention to college football. The top 9 teams in the top 25 held their spots here, fellas, led by number 1 Georgia. The Bulldogs have now tied the second longest streak atop the poll at 21 straight weeks, dating back to the middle of last season. And big news, USC dropped out of the Associated Press college football poll for the first time under Coach Lincoln Riley. Also, number 15, OK State vaulted into the rankings for the first time this year. And the next edition of the college football playoff rankings are set to be released tonight. Fellas, so much college football goodness coming our way right now.
There is a lot of good stuff in there. Jesse, you mentioned USC falling out of the top 25. That was one of the banger games of the weekend. Them in Washington, an absolute, shot clock operator, take your heart medication type game, dad. I was amazed. Caleb Williams, you had the images of him at the end of the game in the crowd with his mom sobbing into her arms. She had, covered his face up with the paper so the camera couldn't fully catch him, but you knew what was going on there. Yep. I was amazed. This kid is such a lightning rod for so many people. The people showing their ass, though, giving him grief for crying and being emotional after a game that he obviously cares about was a joke.
Yeah, it was, but you knew that was going to happen. As soon as he did that, you knew it was going to be all over the place because the kid he's done some stuff that have turned people off. They felt that he's handled some things the wrong way, so this was their chance to now mock him for crying publicly about a game. And I'm with you, man. It's an emotion-filled game. I've cried after games as well, but it's like we said, in this day and age with camera phones and everything being out there, you do that out in public, and I'm not going to sit there and say he knew this was going to happen. He was just being involved in his own emotions there, saying he wanted to go home and just watch TV with his dog, which is a very cool thing, by the way. It's a shame. It's a shame that people, but we knew it was going to happen. Mike, people give death threats to kickers. I mean, so what do we expect they're going to do in a situation like this? They're going to mock. They're just friggin' losers, the people that do this. That's all they are.
Yeah, I think that's the operative word for that one. But let that image also dispel the notion that just because you're out of the college football playoff running, that all of a sudden these games stop mattering. You put a lot of work into this. Caleb Williams clearly has a lot of pride in trying to go out and put his best foot forward for this USC program. And so still been a ton of fun to watch in that game. But Washington gets the win there, Dad. Well, and while
I was going to say, you had said after Washington beat Oregon had been playing better than Washington. I picked Washington to make the Final Four, and I'm kind of with you right now. I mean, Washington's defense has given up a lot, and if they get that rematch in the Pac-12 championship game where it's heading right now, Oregon and Washington, Oregon is playing some, I think, better ball than Washington right now as well. So we'll see where this ends up.
Yeah, Oregon's dialed in right now, and they currently sit behind Washington. As we talk about the rankings Jesse showed with the AP rankings, the rankings that matter right now are the College Football Playoff Committee's rankings. And as we get the second round of those tonight, nothing's going to change, I think. No. Ohio State took care of business against Rutgers. Georgia took care of business against a ranked Missouri team. So in theory, that should help Georgia some in the conversation as now they get to the portion of their schedule that features ranked opponents. They've got Ole Miss coming up, Tennessee, all things they're going to help finally bolster what's been a weak resume for them. And then Michigan at 3, Florida State at 4, followed by Washington at 5 and Oregon at 6. So, Dad, none of that I expect to change. I'm with you. I think Oregon, the best team in the Pac-12 right now. They look like the one that's most prime to make the run in the postseason. And we've now got the opportunity, Dad, where we're in the elimination mode for the college football playoff. People always talked about expansion. November, for a lot of the teams that are in it, becomes that. We saw that this weekend. Oklahoma, like Jesse mentioned. You got Oklahoma State ranked now after winning the last Bedlam this weekend and knocking Oklahoma with their second loss and back-to-back losses. They had beat Texas for one of the better wins in college football early in the season. That wasn't enough to have them ranked above Texas in the initial round of the CFP ranking, and I'd imagine now they're going to drop like a stone, Dad, going back-to-back losses to Kansas and Oklahoma State in a rivalry game that had to feel really good for Mike Gundy and company there. Bedlam will not be played anymore because Oklahoma's getting ready to move to the SEC, and so with the scheduling conflicts, it's not on the books again yet. And in that game, everyone's going to talk about Ollie Gordon, the great running back for Oklahoma State, but their receivers made some high-wire act catches to go out there and get a win and knock Oklahoma out of this now. And for Texas, certainly affects the conversation around them if they're hoping for a rematch in the Big 12 championship game later on.
So I would say this right now. I'd be interested if you would agree as we try and narrow down to the Final Four that right now, the way things are going, a team, the conference that would be left out would be the Big 12, right? I see, that hurt Texas's chances. Obviously, Oklahoma with their loss, if they were going to match up again. But if Florida State goes undefeated, or maybe, if they lose a game, they may be out. But if they go undefeated, they're going to be in. I think right now a one-loss Pac-12 champion would be in over a one-loss Texas team, in my opinion, right now. And then you have, obviously, the Big Ten, the winner there, Michigan or Ohio State, and then the SEC winner, either as the way it's going now, Georgia or Alabama. We can get into the discussion if two from a conference are going to get in. But right now, overall, I'm just looking at kind of the tea leaves going forward. And I would say of the Power Five, if there's a conference that's going to be left out, a lot of times it had been the Pac-12 because they Pac-12 themselves.
Yeah.
But I think right now it would be the Big 12 that would be left out.
I would agree. If everything held serve, if we just played this out saying the top teams win the games that they're supposed to, you would have undefeated Georgia as the SEC champion and likely a win over Alabama, the rate they're going in the West, which would be a very quality win right now. You would have the winner between Ohio State and Michigan going forward, winning the Big Ten championship. Right. The undefeated Big Ten champ would be in no problem. Florida State, who owns some of the best early season wins, including a great out-of-conference win against LSU, would probably play Louisville, who would be another ranked opponent there. They'd be in. And then I'm with you. Whoever comes out of the Pac-12, even if it were to be one-loss Oregon, let's say they faced the Washington team that beat them and avenged that. The committee tends to look at that a little bit differently, as well as just the daunting schedule for everyone in the Pac-12 down the stretch of the season. And you've got Utah going on the road to take on Washington this season. Oregon gets to face that same USC team that Washington just played this past season. Yes, Dad, I think ultimately Texas, who's got no banner games really left on the schedule at this point, and then would face the Oklahoma team that now has a couple losses in a potential rematch in the Big 12 championship game, although the Big 12 still got a bunch of complications to play out.
Right.
It'd be Oklahoma State right now, right?
State right now, yes. It would be Oklahoma State right now.
So, but either way, yes, I think their resume, unfortunately, would fall short of the rest of those, and I think the Big 12 would be on the outside looking in.
Yep. I agree with that. Obviously, there's plenty of games to play, so we'll see.
There is, exactly. And it's an exciting time right now, Dad. We've got a lot of those games coming up this weekend. We mentioned Utah at Washington, USC at Oregon, Ole Miss at Georgia, Miami at Florida State, and Michigan at Penn State, all coming up on this same weekend. Dad, I did want to hit on one more thing kind of tangent to the field after this last weekend. A lot of waves got made, and we've talked about Colorado ad nauseum this year because of Deion Sanders. They lost to Oregon State this weekend after promoting Pat Shurmur, the former NFL offensive coordinator, to co-offensive coordinator from an analyst role there. Sean Lewis, their offensive coordinator, had been really highly regarded for large portions of the season. Dad, have we reached the point where Deion Sanders is doing too much tinkering now with this team?
Well, I think Deion was just trying something here, right? I mean, if you have to pick a coaching position that could have the most effect on a game, it would probably be the play caller, right? On how you're going to use your best offensive weapon in Shedeur Sanders and some of the best weapons on the outside of how they're going to call the play. So I think this was kind of a desperation move. Is Pat Shurmur going to get the ball out of Shedeur's hands quicker because he's getting smacked in the backfield a lot? I think this is what you do when you're losing games, is you start looking to tinker a little bit and try something. I don't blame him for trying something. Not that I put a lot of blame on Sean Lewis on this thing. I mean, we see the warts that this team has after the big start they had in the regular season. They have a long way to go, and I don't think Sean Lewis is the problem, but I also don't blame a head coach for trying something in a position where you can have an effect to see if it can shake things up a little bit.
Yeah, the more I thought about it, I don't think I had as big a problem with this as everybody else did. It's obviously a strange look, but realistically, I don't think Sean Lewis was going to continue coaching here after this year. I think somebody was going to scoop him up for another job based on what we'd seen early in the season. But just adding it to the list of strange things continuing to happen at Boulder at this point of the season.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. The NBA in-season tournament kicked off on Friday. And guys, the courts took most of the headlines here. Check these babies out. I saw someone in the comments on Twitter saying, I may need to adjust the contrast on my TV. So they're not the best looking, some might argue. And it's going to take some time for the fans to get used to the in-season tournament, the format, what's going on. And apparently, they're actually not the only ones.
I'm not even gonna lie, I don't even know what's going on. I don't even know what's going on. I don't even know how it works. I don't know anything, honestly. I'm just looking at the schedule. I see it on the schedule, say like a trophy next to one of the games. I'm like, I feel like the trophy's supposed to be in, July. But why is there a trophy? I don't know what's going on. I'm not gonna lie. All I know is I'm just trying to win the games. That's all.
Well, if you win enough of the games and you make the final and win, that's an extra $500,000 for you.
That's
Does that
nice,
motivate you?
Yeah, for sure. Anything, like that, for sure. But most importantly, just trying to rack up some wins.
So he basically was like, yeah, what everybody's thinking, which is we don't really know what's going on. Obviously, the NBA is trying to get some competitive juices flowing early in the season. It's a little confusing, but finding out that he's going to pocket $500,000 if the Clippers win, he was like, oh, okay.
It's just a good reminder that most guys' eyes glaze over during all of the meetings in the preseason, whether it's the Players Association guys talking to him in the majority of the room or the guys from the league office. Most guys are on the phone thinking about anything else there because it seemed like the first time he was learning that information about the tournament prize and everything that went with it, Dad.
Until money came up, and it's just like an owner's meeting, there's a want, and then they talk about more money you can make, and everybody perks up. Instead of, like you said, on the schedule, there's a little trophy next to the game. They should have put a $sign next to the game. Then the players would have paid attention. And I don't mean that in a bad way at all. I mean that in a good way. This tournament, Mike, I don't understand it. I don't get it at all. I don't. So when you're trying to create something, you have in this case, your NBA diehards, which are going to watch anything. Then you have NBA fans or basketball fans or not basketball fans who aren't going to watch. It's the biggest sector, the middle sector of kind of casual fans that you're trying to grab. Is this grabbing anybody? It's a regular season game wrapped in a tournament, wrapped in $500,000 for the players. It's not making me, outside of knowing that it's there because of the court, I have zero, and I am a casual NBA fan. It is not making me tune in anymore. It is not making me, there's that court. I'm going to watch it right now. It's not doing anything for me. And I really wonder what the overall thought process is going to be, because you'll have the ratings to bear out. Are there higher ratings for these games or not? You'll have your markers to tell if this was a good idea. But when the players don't even understand what the hell is going on, I don't know what good this is doing. Somebody help me here.
So I would be curious, because I'm with you. I didn't watch any of these games, and to your point about the courts, while we were all making fun of them, we were at least talking about it, and it's at least a visual differentiator. This falls into the no such thing as bad publicity space for the NBA. I can't wait to see when they inevitably do the shooting percentage differences between these weird custom courts and the normal courts for guys having to go out and figure out where in that powder blue that looked like the Chargers uniforms for the Indiana Pacers they were supposed to shoot from. But Dad, if I were to guess, I would imagine this is more about just biting into a little bit more of December, because you look at the way that this is slated out. The semifinals and the championship are the games that are going to be played at a different site. Those are the ones that are going to be played in Vegas, and that's December 7th and December 9th that those games are going on. Normally, the NBA's been about Christmas Day, but now the NFL has further continued to encroach on that, and so I wonder if this is just about trying to really get the focus on that, because getting more people to watch regular season basketball isn't going to come because you wrap it in a weird court or a tournament idea. It's going to be because you have more of the stars playing the way the NBA's also been trying to incentivize and really force players to do for this season. Because when you got early season NBA games where you had Joel Embiid and Giannis Antetokounmpo facing off, where you've got now Victor Wembanyama playing, those are the things. I've gone on record of saying the NBA's in-season tournament will work if they get the Spurs to make a deep run in this. Because the one thing that will get me to watch NBA basketball right now is knowing when Big Vic is playing, by and large. Because I want to see something new and a player that's going to actually be trying during the regular season. For the rest of these guys, they're working off the rust right now. There's no way you're going to get good basketball from them. Look at the Clippers game last night. James Harden came over and was basically like, yeah, I'm only going to get so much right now because I didn't have training camp. Wonder who made that happen, James. Yeah, but that's kind of the MO for a lot of these guys right now.
So, all right, if they're playing this tournament for those couple of games in December and they feel that works for them because they're regular season games anyway that were going to be played, I don't know what. Right. And you'll hear the positive spin from the NBA, but I'm going to want to know from the analysts out there, what will this have been a good thing? Will this have worked? I guess that's the thing. Will it have worked for the NBA? Because I probably, while I casually watch, regular season games, I'm sure I'll watch the semifinals and the finals and to see those
absolutely.
Because they'll hit a little bit differently. But I'm with you. Right now, it's Wemby. Put him on TV every single friggin' game that you can, national TV. Put San Antonio on because this dude's a freak, right? This dude is a cheat code, and he is so much fun to watch. And let's just wear him into the ground. He's too young. He doesn't need any time off. He doesn't need any load management at this point. Let's just get our fill of Wemby.
Guys, maybe this in-season tournament is more for the players than the fans. They're like, come on, guys, you get an extra $500,000. Maybe you'll actually try in these early games, and we'll see if that works.
There's something to that.
That's an even bigger uphill battle.
Well, listen, when they played the Pro Bowl, which turned out to, now what it is, a flag football game, basically, it was, the winners got double what the losers got. And that game started to get serious like in the fourth quarter. Even the millionaires winning 60-some thousand instead of 30-some thousand, became a positive for them. So even though NBA players make tens of millions of dollars, not all of them, mind you, that if you're getting $500,000, to win these games anyway, that you had to play anyway, at least until you get to the semis or the finals, and then you can throw a little extra on that. That is a little bit motivating, Jesse. There is no doubt about that. Money is a clear motivator. No matter how much you have, getting more doesn't really bother you.
Yeah, more money, more problems.
No, it's interesting for the NBA that they've run into that problem, though, because you've got a league full of marketed stars. People know who these guys are. There are a lot of known household names, and that generally tends to solve a lot of problems if you're a league. Last night was a perfect example in a different basketball court. We had college hoops start last night, Dad, and I was tuned in, obviously, for our standpoint, unfortunately, to watch the Notre Dame Fighting Irish women's team lose in the We Play game, which I loved the play on words for that. Didn't love the result against South Carolina or the fact that we couldn't stop that Cardoso girl who was out there balling. But you had that, and then I immediately tuned in last night when I saw that Colorado was beating the brakes off of number one ranked LSU, who has Angel Reese and all these big stars coming back this season. That was a draw. Women's college basketball has been the perfect reminder that when you have stars that you can build up over a long time, you create compelling results, and last night was certainly one of them in that sport. I know the names of so many of the players in women's college basketball this year because you've got Angel Reese and company back, because they had Haley Van Lith transfer, because you've got Caitlin Clark back at Iowa. The NBA's got plenty of stars, and yet we still fall into this problem in the middle of the season where we wax in our ability to actually care all that much.
Oh, we do. I mean, it's a let's start at Christmas. How many times, Mike, would our old buddy Jay Billis get mad at us when we'd have him on to talk college basketball way after the season started because it was still football season, and he would get so ticked at us for having him on so late. But that's just the way it is. I mean, basketball's going on, hockey's going on, but football is the top sport, so everything else is secondary for a while. I guess that's one of the reasons they made this NBA tournament, in-season tournament, to try and, up the viewership value.
They're trying to create stakes for a time of year where it does not feel like each game has a ton of given value to it. That's the biggest difference. Football's got scarcity to sell you in the amount of games that you get. Basketball is reckoning with a bigger problem in that way. Hour number 2 coming up next here on GoJo and Golic.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Cornerback Danny Johnson is in his 6th season with the Washington Commanders, and he's joining the fellas now, fresh off a 2017 win over the Pats on Sunday, and we are happy to have him here.
Yeah, Danny, congratulations on the win. We appreciate the time this morning, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. No problem.
So you guys get that win. You're obviously feeling good, coming in early to this week because of that. But I'm curious for you overall, as a guy who's been around this organization for a long time. You had a lot of changes this offseason with management up top, with the ownership in the organization here. We've seen and heard a lot made of that. What's the experience been like for you as a player this year? Is there a different vibe around the building in Washington right now?
For us, just as players, we just try to go in there, try to, control the things that we can control and just try to find ways to win. The guys there, they come in to work every day, ready to work regardless who's, managing us. So I think that we keep that same mindset, things are going to keep going up for us.
So on the player side of it, and I agree with you, that's all you can control. What was the feeling when you actually saw a couple of players being traded away, and Montez Sweat and Chase Young? It's like all of a sudden, wow, a couple of our pass rushers are gone on this defense.
Oh man, it was crazy, especially just being around those guys. Tiz is a great guy, Chase is a great guy, but unfortunately, we know things like this can happen in this business any day. But for me, I used to talk to those guys every day, so just seeing them, gone, it's kind of something that you have to get used to. But that was great guys. Both of those guys were great guys in that building.
Chase talked about finding out on social media about the trade. How did you find out? How is that news delivered to you guys? Do you just find out from Adam Schefter like everybody else?
Yeah, I found out from social media as well. Just, being on, as soon as you grabbed my phone, it just popped up and showed on social media. So that's how I found out as well.
So, Danny,
what's the conversation going into the building the next day after something like that, where this news hits? And you mentioned from a player standpoint, you're focused on what you guys can do. But for Ron Rivera, how does he address that with you guys as a team when you've got personnel moves that are absolutely going to affect, guys like you on the rest of that defense?
For us, it's just, it's about the next guy, just having opportunities. I think that's how, go from that. Just, telling guys, they get a chance to play now. So, just trying to step up and fill those shoes and go in and just, show that they deserve to be there as well. So I think that was the biggest thing, just, making sure guys knew that, it was opportunities for other guys to get in there and play now.
Danny, let's talk about your journey out of Southern. You're undrafted to Washington in 2018. You've been there your entire career through the ups and downs of being released, practice squad, being re-signed. As you're going through all this, was there ever a time where you felt like, boy, this just isn't working for me right now? And then what was that mental drive to keep you going?
It's definitely, sometimes it feel like, you're hitting that wall. But for me, it's just always had that drive of coming from a school like Southern University just to keep going no matter what. And I think the mental thing was just, knowing what I go out there and do it for. I go out there and do it for my family, my kids. And I just most mainly do it to just go out there so I can have fun. And so I think that, as long as I keep that mindset of just showing that I deserve to be here, and no matter what, I always try to find the positive in every opportunity that I get. And, since I've been keeping that mindset, I don't too much let things worry me. I just, take the punches and keep rolling.
How do you approach, for a guy who's a veteran guy, but like you said, you came up as a player fighting for your place in this league, when the team goes out and drafts a guy like Emmanuel Forbes, who then, struggles, and part of those struggles get you more playing time? How do you approach a guy like that in the room, a young player, in terms of, are you a mentor? Are you helping that guy out in any way? What's your thought process on that?
Emmanuel's like a brother to me, and I know, people, talked about what the struggles he had, but he's just coming in, he learning. And for me, it's just always whatever I knew, I tried to give it to him, tell him. Whatever I seen on the field, I just tried to help him out. And even when, I started getting more playing time, he was the same way with me. And we just kind of helped each other out. It's things that I learned from him that he does, and vice versa. But, for me, and I'm just happy to see him back in there, and I'm happy to see him, finally getting his confidence back and going back in there and just having fun. I think that's the biggest thing in the game, and a lot of us lose that sense, just going out there and just have fun. And I think now, he's back doing that. And like I said, for me, I've never been a bitter type of player. I like to see everybody win. For me, whenever my number is called, whenever it's my opportunity, I just try to go in there and just make an impact for this team.
So looking now forward, and for those wondering how a game week works, it could differ amongst teams. You play the game Sunday, watch film, and do a little lifting Monday, get Tuesday off, and start the game plan on Wednesday. So we're not there yet for your game against Seattle. But I know I always, even before the game plan, looked ahead to like the individuals, what, as a D lineman, what offensive lineman I was going to be going against that week. So while your game plan isn't in yet, you have Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. So do you look ahead to the individuals and start kind of processing the game for yourself?
I definitely do, especially once we wrap up a week, get that 24 hours to finish up that last game. I try to just look forward just to see who we got coming up as the next matchup, just to give me a heads up and kind of already be looking forward into the film, or when we get ready to go into our installs, just to kind of already have some insight on what type of things I'll be getting.
Is there ever a thought when you're tackling DK Metcalf to never go above the waist and tackle him low?
I just know one thing, like when you tackle that guy, you got to be physical. You can't just go in there just grabbing at him. You got to make a physical tackle and make sure you get him down.
Danny, looking elsewhere around your guys' team, I know he's not your coach on your side of the ball, but a lot got made of Eric Bieniemy and his coaching style heading into the season for you guys as the offensive coordinator. From what you've seen around the building and talking to your offensive teammates about, what have your impressions of Eric Bieniemy been now during half a season with him in Washington?
I just think that he just wants to get the best out of guys. He pushes us every day. He talks to all of us. And I think just, for those guys, he was just showing them he want to get everything out of them that he could. And I think he's doing a great job of that. And I think the guys are doing a great job of responding to it, just going out there every week and just, regardless of what the scoreboard says, them guys are competing. We see that day in and day out. And I think that was just the biggest thing.
We're getting around the middle part of the season. So there's the physical part of the game, the mental part of the game. And I think I heard it correctly in the post-game locker room, or your last one with Ron. Didn't he give you the "we'll see you Wednesday" line, which every single player loves to hear after a Sunday game, and just how that makes you mentally feel better?
Oh, that makes me feel great. Everybody's waiting to hear those words. It just gives you a time to get a head start to get your body back, just to try to feel better going into that week, just to get a jump start on your recovery. And I think those words, that's the biggest words you can hear after a win.
We'll see you Wednesday. The three words that every player wants to hear over the course of this season. Danny, I want to get to something you've got coming up with your Thanksgiving Turkey Day drive here soon. Really good work that you're going to be a part of doing here as we get closer and closer to the holiday season. But I want to ask you about a couple more guys on your team. I think Terry McLaurin goes probably one of the more underrated wide receivers year in, year out in the NFL. As a guy who's seen him in practice and gone up against him there and sees him around the building, what stands out to you about his game, and why is he one of the best receivers in the league?
I think that's the work that guy puts in. The same thing he does in the game is the same stuff Terry does at practice. And I think, that's where it starts. Terry's very consistent. And he don't say much. He just go out there and just work. And that's the thing that I like about Terry. And he does that same thing and show that same thing on Sunday with just way more energy. And I think, for Terry to just be consistent like he's done, over the past couple of years, and me just being able to watch him, I think Terry's one of the top guys in this league.
Terry, and not saying much is not surprising there too. And that's almost more frustrating, I feel like, when you get a guy that works quietly like that and goes out and is just giving guys buckets out there on the field. What about your quarterback, Sam Howell? Young guy getting his opportunity this year, goes out there and plays like he's a bowling ball sometimes, bouncing off dudes of opposing defenses here. From going against him in training camp to what you've seen of him around the building now, has Sam Howell made an impression on this locker room?
I think Sam definitely has. The fire that Sam's played with. Sam just go out there and he just try to get it done, regardless of what happens. Look at for example, like the run this past weekend, we needed that first down. He grinded it out and went and got it. You want that in your quarterback, when stuff kind of breaks down. And Sam just, he commands that offense. He does a great job of running it. I really think he does. And just for him to just fight for those extra yards, most quarterbacks kind of like will go out of bounds, but Sam's one of those feisty guys, and he's going to try to get every inch that he possibly could.
At your position, I'm wondering, I think I know the answer to this, but, I don't play the position. Is the worry more of a wide receiver with speed or a wide receiver with physicality?
I think sometimes like it's both. They got some physical receivers in this game, but I think more so that speed. That's what you got to watch for. These guys are running nowadays. For example, look at like Miami team. They are running. Them guys are running. So I think those guys that can stretch that field vertical, you got to make sure you pay attention to a lot of those guys, especially having multiple with the way these guys can run in the league. You got to make sure you're challenging them, making sure you got the right technique because one false step can get you way behind with these guys.
Is there a frustration level amongst? I know I get it as a former defensive player watching. I think the hardest position to play is defensive back. The way the rules are now designed for the offense. Do you guys feel that way? Is it whether you guys talk about it or not? Do you feel that way on the field?
I think we always have this conversation. I think it's the toughest position on the field, in my opinion. And for one, I'm going backwards, they're going forward, and then. Too, like you said, it's so hard, especially with the rules. You got to make sure, you're not touching when the ball's in the air. You don't get too much of hand fighting like you used to get. So I think that's the biggest thing, making sure you turn your head when the ball is in the air just to get your head back to try to play through the hands. And, so you got to kind of be smart with your technique nowadays.
Is that the biggest difference of college for a DB? We always talk about college to pro is speed. But also in college, you can have your hands on a receiver down the field, not when the ball is in the air, but down the field. Is that the biggest adjustment you guys have to make is you only have that 5-yard area?
And definitely, especially for me when I first came in, that was my biggest adjustment. I was used to being able to put your hands on the receiver all the way down the field when you're in press. And then when I got here, I couldn't touch it down the field, especially once the ball is in the air. So I had to figure out, what other techniques can I use once I touch you within 5 yards? How else can I, just transition my eyes to the hip, making sure I'm following the break and stuff like that. And it made it more challenging, but, I try to continue to just work with it, especially during the off season. That's why I feel like I had to put a lot of my work in because coming in that rookie year, everything was going so fast. So you were learning, you were trying to adjust. And I think that was my biggest thing, going into that off season after my first year.
Was there a player you watched or a veteran you talked to try and pick up some of those tools to use?
Yeah, when I first got in, I used to watch guys like Fabian Moreau, Josh Norman, DJ Swearinger, Quinn Dunbar, guys like that, that kind of taught me the rules and ways they would go about things. And, I just try to use whatever techniques they have and, kind of try to put it into my toolbox and use those things as well.
Well, it's obviously paid off. It's been fun seeing all of your success on the field. Danny, we know off the field, you got something coming up here on Thanksgiving Turkey Day drive around the holidays. We know this is an important time and a difficult time for a lot of people. So why is this something that you wanted to get involved in, and what can you tell people about your 4th annual turkey drive?
For me, this is something I wanted to get involved in. I know going around times like this, and especially me just being a guy that was at home, playing ball at Southern and Baton Rouge, I was able to go home. And, a lot of times you see people and a lot of people aren't in our situation to be able to afford things coming around the holidays. So I just try to get in and to just get involved and just show people that I really care. I really care about, what people went through in my area, what they go through. And I just try to help as many people as I could. So I try to put on as many events as I possibly could, just to give back to the community, whether it's, adults, whether it's kids, whatever. And for me, I just want to show people, I appreciate the support that they've given me, and I just want to give back, all the blessings that God has bestowed upon me.
Oh, that's great to hear when you have the stage that you have to be able to give back like that and help so many people. It's a very cool thing. All right, a couple of questions about Thanksgiving. Outside of turkey, if there is a different meat on the table, what would you want it to be?
Oh, outside of turkey, I think I like ham. I have to have ham as well. I like the glazed ham, so I think I'll go with that.
Great answer there. Next, best side dish on your Thanksgiving table?
I like rice dressing. I really like dressing.
Okay.
I'm with that too, and the cut up sausage in there as well. Yeah. Got to do that.
All right, and the most important one here, what's the best Thanksgiving dessert?
Peach cobbler.
Peach cobbler.
Ooh, interesting.
Wow. Okay.
Peach cobbler.
All right.
Wow. Upsetting pumpkin pie or sweet potato pie on the table. That's interesting.
See, I'm not a big pie guy, so that's why I think I'll take the peach cobbler.
See, that would work well if we were at the same table, because I'm not a peach cobbler guy, so you could have mine and I would take your pumpkin pie and we would both be happy.
That'll work out perfect for me.
There we go. Danny Johnson, welcome at our Thanksgiving table any day. Great work he's doing with the Thanksgiving Day Turkey Drive. Make sure you check that out. Again, trying to give back around where he came from in Louisiana. Danny, thanks so much for the time. Best of luck to you the rest of this season. Stay healthy, and we hope everything continues to go well for you.
Thank you, and I appreciate you guys for having me.
Thanks, Danny.
No problem.
Awesome stuff. Again, that Turkey Drive coming up November 18th in Jackson, Louisiana there. And Dad, certainly great answers there. Wasn't ready for peach cobbler on there.
I wasn't
Didn't want to
either.
get into the debate about pumpkin and sweet potato pie, but we can save that for another day. We still got time before the big dance.
Yeah, we can. Neither you or I are big fruit guys with our dessert, though I do like apple pie. You don't really like any fruit, and I'm just an apple guy. I'll go with pumpkin or sweet potato any day of the week. But Danny Johnson is such a great story, from Southern, 3-year starter there, played in the Senior Bowl. First, was he the first player from Southern to play in the Senior Bowl, I think, in 23 years. But just the times he was cut, re-signed, practice squad, there's that mental drive, and physical drive of saying, okay, do I keep going? How much do I keep going? And then it kind of timed well for him. As you mentioned, they brought in Emmanuel Forbes, the top pick, who was struggling. So he got benched. And there's, Danny all of a sudden getting more time. And, it starts to work out for you. It's pretty impressive.
It is pretty impressive, Dad. You mentioned timing, though. Jesse, we've got some interesting injury timing around the NFL right now, as there are some quarterbacks and teams that are getting bad news, and one team that looks like they might get a look at their guy for the first time all season long. What can you tell us?
Yeah, so Daniel Jones, unfortunately, an MRI on Monday confirmed their fears that he has a torn ACL in his right knee. He's going to miss the remainder of the season. So as you can see, we have some comparisons here about his last 2 seasons. A huge loss for the Giants, not good at all. Other quarterback news, though. Dobbs and Heineke are expected to start in Week 10. And Kyler Murray, guys, expected to start if all goes well this week.
Yeah, this is really going to be the interesting one, Dad. Obviously, terrible for the Giants, who are now going to be in a really difficult spot if their team continues to be as bad as they've been, of if you are within range of one of the top draft prospects, should the Daniel Jones money next year, which dead cap-wise would be in the $60 million range, is that prohibitive of you going and turning the page in the way I believe you should? And the Cardinals, who a lot of people looked at in the same position after trading Josh Dobbs at the deadline. You start Clayton Tune last week, your rookie out of Houston, and get blanked. And now with Kyler Murray coming back out here now, it's interesting, Dad, because you worry about the injury guarantee money that potentially in his contract going forward, because you're not sure what his future with the organization looks like.
I mean, you look at a couple of teams. Chicago, you're not sure with Justin Fields, 2 wins. Arizona, like you said, not sure with Kyler, 1 win. Carolina has 1 win, but they're set there. The Giants, I agree. And the Giants are sitting there at, 2 wins, but had paid Daniel Jones. So I don't know where that'll go. As you mentioned, I think we looked at the dead cap hit. It was like $68 or $69 million. The Kyler Murray one, to me, is a little surprising, Mike. I thought they were just going to sit him. His injury, for those that don't know, if he gets hurt and can't pass a physical in March, he would be guaranteed, I think, $29 to $30 million. So there's always, when there's that injury guarantee, a lot of times, if you're not going to have that guy down the road, you don't play him for risk of the injury and having to be guaranteed that money. It looks like he's going to be on the field because we all feel like they're going to make a move at the quarterback position at the end of the year. So this will, maybe they're not. Who knows? We'll wait and see. But this was an interesting one. I didn't think Kyler Murray was going to see the field this year.
And boy, the backdrop for comparison, which is always the thief of joy in this game, is staggering because Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals are taking on the Atlanta Falcons. Why is that important? Because this is the same Atlanta Falcons team that just lost to Josh Dobbs, who was learning his teammates' names on the sidelines in Minnesota this past weekend. And so if that guy can go out and get it done and Kyler Murray can't, no amount of context is going to save you from the discourse that follows after that. right, we've got to celebrate a very important day in history coming up in a second. We do superlatives for the NFL on Tuesdays, but today is going to have a little bit of extra holiday spirit for reasons that we will get to in just a second. But I was shocked, stunned yesterday as we had a new Ben Affleck meme hit the internet, or so I thought yesterday when we got done with the show, as a picture of Ben Affleck was all over my timeline, once again looking miserable, contemplating existence, and doing it while holding a Starbucks coffee cup here. And seeing this, knowing the relationship that Ben Affleck has personally and professionally with the folks over at Dunkin', I was sounding the alarms. I thought for sure Dunkin' headquarters was going to be on crisis lockdown mode. They're trying to figure out how they can spin this. And Jesse, you come out of nowhere with, I think, the most important breaking news and context in all of this here, that this is in fact an old photo.
Captured from 2014. So this image is nearly a decade old, before the memes of, Ben Affleck holding the Dunkin' Donuts cups went super viral, and he sort of started his partnership with Dunkin'. He's always been a Dunkin' guy, but prior to that relationship really becoming a monetary thing, I would guess he probably would have been spotted here and there with other coffees. But yeah, this photo is from 2014, so we don't need to worry about there being a fractured relationship between Ben Affleck and Dunkin' Donuts.
Wow, that was a scary thing. I thought, this is going to destroy the internet here and be talked about a lot. But there's some myth busting right there. There we go.
People still rode with it and it's been going viral.
Oh, I'm sure.
But it was pretty hysterical to see.
It's me. I am people. I rode with it. Had complete ignorance of the situation here and just decided to let a couple of tweets fly because Ben Affleck, much like we talked about with Rob Saleh, who's just walking meme potential, Ben Affleck has been the poster for that, especially when it comes to misery, for a long time.
Oh.
All right, how about this?
Always.
How about this conspiracy theory? His publicist put that picture out because he has an expiring contract with Dunkin' Donuts.
Ooh.
Chestnut
checkers, baby.
How about that, huh?
Is his new PR person Tree, Taylor Swift's team? Because that would make sense.
Yes.
That would.
He's about to kick his feet up on the table and go, retainer, and shout it at the Dunkin' people until they realize it's time to pay up. All right, guys, it's time to get to more important news and an anniversary that we got today, Jesse, in honor of our NFL superlatives.
Yeah, I got to be honest. When I read this, I was like, that's not true. That can't be. I'm not that old. Elf was released 20 years ago today. 20 years ago. I don't even feel like I've been alive for that long. Makes us feel very old, obviously. So let's do a mid-season superlatives Elf style, okay? And I just want you to know, for the actual anniversary of the movie, November 7th, okay, there's gonna be some extra special celebrations happening in New York City, which is pretty dang cool. So the Empire State Building is gonna be lit up with a green and yellow light in honor of Elf. That's how big of a cultural impact this movie has made. So let's get to these midseason superlatives. The first one is a player who's making teams look stupid for passing on him in the 2023 draft, the Cotton-Headed Ninny Muggins Award.
Why don't you just say it? I'm the worst toy maker in the world. I'm a cotton-headed Ninny Muggins.
Well, I am deeply disturbed by my Elf graphic there. And the fact that he could talk. Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they never thought about if they should. Dad, the player who's making teams look stupid, I would say this, it's easy to look at a guy like Puka Nacua, who was a name that no one really knew coming into this season. I know you've been high on CJ Stroud, the number 2 overall pick that the Panthers didn't choose, but I would look at that and still say, the circumstances are so different. I still am not sure if you had C.J. Stroud at the Panthers, given the limitations of their offense right now, it would look this good. Jalen Carter even feels like a tough one there, but that's probably where I would lean, Dad. Obviously, so much of that in the pre-draft was based on things off the field that happened for him, and so I'm not going to slight teams too much, but I'm sure there's a part of a team like the Seattle Seahawks, as happy as they are with their first-round pick, that still look at this and their pass rush needs and realize this could have been a really happy marriage.
Yeah, and I'd lean to Puka Nacua. Again, even his own team passed on him a few times, obviously. To go this late in the draft, but still to have a talent like that. And it's not like I think, Mike, he only would have thrived with the Rams. It seems that some guys just come in and get it. Some guys just come in and fit, right off the bat in the NFL. And he seems like a guy that just got it. He's sitting there, fourth in the league, I think, in receiving yards. And as far as receptions, he's right near the top as well. He's tied for fourth in that as well. So I think he would have been a guy that would have got it in a lot of different offenses around the league. And this is just one of those that was kind of a miss.
Certainly a miss here, not a miss, this movie. Let's get to our next superlative, talking about a team that could have been good, but between a combination of bad luck, bad decisions, and injuries wound up where they were. What do we got here?
Sorry, I ruined your lives and crammed 11 cookies into the VCR.
Now, Dad, coming off of last night, the recency bias answer would probably be a team like the Jets, but I'm going to go the Raiders just because it came from so many angles at this organization. You've got an owner with a heinous bowl cut. You hired a head coach that was once again, showed you in the past he probably wasn't cut out for this, and then came in and confirmed that in the organization, clearly was despised by a lot of the players, and you went and spent money on a quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo that's now sidelined with some of the same injury worries that almost delayed your signing to begin with. So a lot of errors from a lot of angles for this Las Vegas Raiders team you get to see this weekend.
Yeah, the easy one here is the Jets, but I'll go a different place as well, because one of the things you deal with in the NFL is when you pay somebody a lot of money, the salary cap implications. And you had a guy that Pete Carroll had no problem letting go from Seattle or getting rid of him in Seattle, and the Denver Broncos pay him a ton of money, and that's Russell Wilson, who has not played anywhere near like we've seen him play in Seattle at all, and they're stuck with this contract for a bit. So this was one, I think it was a head scratcher at the time, maybe not Denver trading for him, but giving him the money that they gave him, and it certainly is not working out.
All right, let's wrap this up by doing some self-scouting here and getting to the team player situation that we were most wrong about to start the season. Play the hits.
You sit on a throne of lies.
Your beard, my beard does actually smell like beef and cheese, so I resemble that remark. Dad, the throne of lies I sat on was pretty easy here. We've got the clip actually from the show that we did outside of Arrowhead Stadium before the first game of the NFL season, doing our spiciest takes, which is a reminder for the context of this. It was supposed to be spicy, but this one was spicy and very wrong here. Play me being an idiot.
I'm going to say my spicy take is Bryce Young goes over 4,000 yards this year. Becomes one of a handful of quarterbacks
passing
to do
or
that.
Total?
Passing.
Wow.
Passing yards this year. We're talking about Andrew Luck. We're talking about Justin Herbert.
That's spicy.
We're talking about Cam Newton back in the day. I think Cam became the first quarterback, so I'll come full circle and say, I don't know if he breaks Cam's yard. I think Cam was 4,051 yards, but he's going to be within range of that this year.
I remember sitting there, too, thinking, man, I could say C.J. Stroud for this and didn't. And, boy, that would have been cool to have been that right that early on here, Dad. So do you have anything that dumb?
Not really. I was pretty much right on everything I've said, which is pretty much how it's been for my 20, 25 years in this business. I've been right all the time. So I don't really have one. I mean, could you think of anything I've been wrong about? Or are you disgusted with how right I am all the time?
No, it's got to be tough having nailed so many things like the rise of Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City for the Chiefs. And no way questioning Andy Reid's decision-making there, them taking Alex Smith, who had been a playoff quarterback, off the field there. You never would have questioned that move.
No idea what you're talking about. Absolutely none at all. But by God, what a great movie Elf is. I mean, they're re-releasing it in theaters again. If anybody has not seen it, go watch it. One of the great movies all time, and I'm not afraid to say something like that.
To Jesse's point about how old it makes me feel, the most interesting part about Elf was that it almost immediately came in and made itself a part of Christmas canon, which for this particular genre, content-wise, hard stuff to do. Now it's been around long enough to just be canon in general. All right, so we got an early start on the holiday conversation in thanks, in some part, to conversation that we had earlier in the show with Danny Johnson, Washington Commanders cornerback, who's doing a great job with his Thanksgiving turkey drive. Then we had the news Elf is 20 years old as of today. It's 1 year away from being able to take its first legal sip. And then it got us into discussion. Jesse, you are a one-time parent, about to be a two-time parent, but your daughter right now is old enough to start to take in a lot of the different holiday traditions, and Elf on the Shelf, to me, seems like a very controversial one in the parent community right now. You said you're going to go through with the Elf on the Shelf, right?
Yes, but we're not doing the Elf on a Shelf where the elf is like a spy for Santa Claus who's watching you and monitoring your behavior, because apparently that's a thing parents do. They're like, oh, the elf is here, and if you're bad, he's going to tell Santa, and then you won't get presents. So, no, we're not going to do that. I just think it would be fun and cool, and she would think it was great if we take the elf and, you know, every night you hide it somewhere new and you set up a little scene, and it'll just be like, oh, what did the elf get up to last night while we were sleeping? But it's not going to be like, the elf is watching you.
Oh, I just realized now, if you're a family in Big Ten country and you don't put sunglasses and a Central Michigan hat on your elf and have Connor the elf watching out, looking for signs around your home, you are not a real Big Ten football fan, and I would question everything about you.
That's well done. And Jesse, we were the opposite. We had to make our kids live in fear. We didn't have Elf on a Shelf. We didn't do that then, but we always said Santa's watching. Santa sees everything. Everything you do, it's parents. We don't have to see it, what you're doing when nobody's watching, but Santa sees it. So you're going to be on the nice list or the naughty list. So there was that little bit in there.
So this is what
I heard a parent this weekend for the first time check their kid with that. I was at the checkout counter somewhere. I think it was at like a Walgreens, and the parent next to me was trying to corral their kid, and they said Santa's watching, and I saw that cold shiver go down their spine.
So what I will say, and I say this to my mom all the time, is like every generation does the best they can with the information that they have, right? That's just how it is. Like, you do your best with the information at the time. My generation now has like child psychology studies. We like understand the effect of some of these things on children as they develop, and stuff like that, which my parents did that to me too. All of our parents did, but like not great for kids. To be like, someone's watching you, and if you're bad, you're a bad person, and Santa won't bring you presents. Like, yeah.
I don't know. Is that so bad? I mean, all I gotta say is my son Mike is ready for the apocalypse, right? It's prepared him in a way that if the end is coming, he is ready to defend himself.
Good.
Dear God. For more talk about the psychological effect of holiday parenting here, we're delighted to now welcome in 49ers offensive tackle Matt Pryor, who joins us right now. Matt, are you a big holiday guy, either for Thanksgiving, Christmas, anything like that? Do you get into the season at all?
Normally, no. I mean, of course, Thanksgiving, because, you know, everybody loves the Thanksgiving food. But I just had my first kid this year, so, you know, I'm looking forward to the holidays and, you know, kind of starting our own little agenda every year.
So I'm wondering.
There we go. Congratulations.
Because I did this. Mike, my son here is my oldest. And we always said, man, we're not going to buy kids all these gifts. You know, we're just going to get them some gifts. And I have 3 kids now, Matt, and we buy them we bought them everything in the world. There were more gifts that they needed. Are you doing that? Are you trying to go down the road of we're not going to buy a lot, but you know damn well you will?
Yeah, man, I have a daughter, so, you know, I'm going to spoil her. But yeah, I already got shopping carts and stuff picked out for the year. I try to hold out on buying anything. My girl gets mad at me. But yeah, I'm spoiling her, man.
Matt, do you know who Miss Rachel is yet?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Of course. It's kind of part of the routine. You know, we wake up in the morning, she gets her little 30 minutes while we get food ready or drink our coffee, and then you know, she's in there clapping or, you know, just jumping around in her bouncer. So yeah, I know Miss Rachel very well. Songs are on repeat in my head.
Yeah, they are. And by the way, and everybody should understand, Miss Rachel will end up being her net worth more than any football player who has ever played this game.
Yes. Yeah, man, it's insane how much people make off, kid entertainment. You got kids doing breakdown on toys on YouTube, and they're making millions off of that. So that's wild.
It is an absolutely wild time to be alive right now. And then we got guys like Matt Pryor going out here putting his body on the line so that he can provide for his family right now. So Miss Rachel's singing. Matt Pryor's trying to block guys out here. And Matt, listen, we know for you guys in the 49ers, it's been a tough stretch of games here. What's the mentality in the locker room right now? What are you guys talking about as you try and bounce back from these last three?
We treat it the same like in season. It's a 1 week season, and that's how we try to treat it. We're going into this week the same we've gone into every game. We just got to go 1-0. Obviously, mentalities might be different, just coming off 3 losses, but we try to keep it steady. Not too high, not too low.
So along those lines, so nothing has changed from the meeting standpoint to a workout to practice standpoint. Everything has just stayed the same.
Yeah, man. These are one of the. I've been on 3 different teams, and here it's when it comes down to practice. Everything's kind of game intensity wise. But no, nothing's changed from meetings to practice. Same intensity. And each game, coach talked about, it comes down to about 3 or 4 plays. And, we watch film and we see the plays that, we didn't get to capitalize on, which, led to a couple losses. So, we're just going to improve on the little fundamental things.
You mentioned game intensity in practice. Did that pick up even more when you guys acquired Chase Young? What was it like seeing yet another monster added to that D-line that you get to practice against every day?
So yesterday we had a little 50-minute practice, just helmets. I seen him get off the ball, I played against him a couple when I was in Philly, and he's a big dude, and he can finesse off the edge some. But we haven't really gone head to head yet. That'll be Wednesday, Thursday. So I won't know to then.
Looking forward to that. Are you still doing? Because I know in the league now there's only like 14 padded practices during the year. Do you guys still jump into full pads? I know it's only halfway through the season, or is it lightened a bit?
No, Thursday. So it's weird here. Normally, padded practices for me would be Wednesdays, but we do it Thursdays here, so it's a little bit different. But we're still going Thursdays and pads as far as I know. So I'm just enjoying what I can do.
Yeah.
So, all right, only about a minute left here, Matt. Want to ask you in your position room, obviously, for you guys, Trent Williams being banged up has been a huge loss in the last couple of games. What's the most impressive thing about Trent Williams' game from your mind as one of his peers in the offensive line room?
Man, I'll say his mentality, man. That and, his explosive power. And the dude's quick, man. He's nimble. But I'll say his mentality and just, the way he plays. He's an older vet, so he hasn't really lost a step, but he finesses on plays. He does little tricks and stuff in the secondary or on the D line. So yeah, man, it's fun to watch him, up in person. So
do you even try any of that stuff that he pulls off in his game, or do you just say that's just Trent and he's got to do that?
No, I give it a shot, but he's done it for so long. I'm just starting to try to work some stuff into my regimen. So, yeah, man, dude, yeah, it's phenomenal to watch him out there. And just see how he prepares.
Well, it's a great team with a ton of great players, and I have no doubt going to get back on track for you guys here really soon. Matt, thank you so much. Hope you and your daughter enjoy the holiday season coming up. Best of luck for the rest of the year.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
All right, y'all.
Awesome stuff. Well, I mean, Dad, he mentioned having a baby girl that he's going to spoil right now. You're getting ready to welcome a granddaughter into the world here pretty soon with my sister, so I hope you're taking notes.
We'll spoil her worse than we spoiled Sydney. God help us all for that one.
Boy, and that is saying an awful lot. Back to finish up the show next here. It's GoJo and Golic. All right, guys, time to finish off the day with this, that, and the third. 3 quick stories to send you off on into the rest of the day. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review, leave us a 5-star rating, and check us out live here Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on DraftKingsNetwork.com, the DraftKings YouTube channel, Samsung TV Plus, Roku, a bunch of other places as well. And if you missed any of our great guests like Washington Commanders DB Danny Johnson or 49ers offensive lineman Matt Pryor, who we just had on with us, make sure you go and check that out wherever you get your podcast or right here on YouTube after we get done with this show live. Guys, let's get to this, that, and the third. We have a little baseball making waves right now. The Cubs out here money slapping our boy and Notre Dame's very own Craig Counsell, who will join the Cubs as their new manager. The Cubs, in a kind of awkward handoff, announced the firing of World Series winner David Ross, who had been their manager for some time now, as they hired Craig Counsell on Monday to a record-setting bag, 5 years and $40 million. That Dad also had the Milwaukee Brewers, the team that he was departing, feeling some type of way about that.
Yeah, his contract expired in Milwaukee on the 31st. A lot of people thought he would end up back there or maybe with the Mets, but he ends up with the Cubs going for $8 million a year. The previous high average annual value for a manager was Terry Francona with the Guardians at $4.5 million. So the Cubs absolutely money whipped a guy who before that, when Ross was the manager, Ross should have known it was over when this happened. On October 2nd, Tom Ricketts, the owner of the Cubs, said about Ross, he's our guy. Right then, that's when you put your house up for sale, right? That's when you get the real estate agent and say, okay, we're going to be out of here. And sure enough, that's what happened. So congrats to the ND grad, Craig Counsell, on getting that bag.
Yep, absolutely there. And I, by the way, shorted David Ross, 2-time World Series champion.
Yes.
But you're right. I did love this quote from Brewers owner Mark Atanasio that said, "We lost Craig, but I've reflected on this, Craig has lost us, and he's lost our community. And it's a really special play to be," is the exact thing that you say when you lost the breakup.
But also, of course he's going to take, that is an obscene amount of money. You can't, say, oh, man, oh, geez. Like you said, it's when you lose the breakup, that's what you say. Well, we didn't even want him. He's lost us, and he's going to regret this.
And what we don't know, I don't know did Milwaukee counter? Did they have an offer? Again, his contract expired with them October 31st. His previous salary was making $3.5 million a year. He's more than doubled that. Imagine that. More than $3.5 million to $8 million a year. Man, that's not only a happy Craig Counsell, but a happy Craig Counsell family.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's eating off that plate right now. So congratulations to Craig Counsell and the Cubs. Now the chorus of replies that I've seen from Cubs fans, like my friend, former colleague Sarah Spain, is, all right, we see you got money. Now let's see you spend some of that on players here going forward and get back in this thing. Jesse, let's get to that. An NFL transaction coming with one of the weirder caveats I've seen in quite some time.
Yeah, so Blake Martinez is allegedly back in the NFL. He left to start his own Pokemon business, okay? And this Pokemon business was reportedly generating $11.5 million in sales by selling breaks on a platform called Whatnot. It all came crashing down earlier this year, though, okay? So a comprehensive investigation by Whatnot found misconduct on Martinez's part. So now he's like, all right, well, I guess I got to fall back on the NFL, reportedly signing with the Panthers here. Guys, not a bad fallback plan. And GoJo, it sounds like this Pokemon scheme is something you would have liked to have been involved in.
Man, I tell you what, fascinating to watch the way this played out over Pokemon cards. Like, I remember ripping kids off at the bus stop back in the day. I got over so bad on some kid for a holographic Charizard that his mom came out to chastise me at the bus stop, and I told her that all sales were final and that she needed to go talk to her son about being less of an idiot. That's a him problem, not a me problem.
You did not. Did you really
I had to
say
let her
that
know.
to her?
Absolutely. It's not my job to parent her dumb son.
You said that to her. How old were you when you said that to her? Mike, I know you, and I don't know you saying that.
He said it.
Dad, I was in the fourth grade. Do you think I said that? This is like when parents make up profound quotes from their 3-year-olds. It's like, my daughter looked at me last night and said the world doesn't need to be the way it is.
Yeah.
We can all choose to be better, as she put her binky in. Hell no, I didn't say that stuff.
No, he probably cried, and he gave the money back. And
did you?
yeah.
Yes.
I didn't give the card back. I will say that. All trades were final, and I just denied.
Okay, fair enough.
All right. So you did it that way. That's cool. I just wondered, I didn't think you reversed the sale.
No, definitely didn't reverse the scale. Blake Martinez has not commented publicly or explicitly on what went on. All he said was, quote, "I never wanted to make this feel like a scam." And so maybe this comeback is tied to making sure that you have the money to pay for legal fees that could be mounting up at this point, because this doesn't sound like something you do without getting sued.
All I have to say is I have no idea what selling breaks on a platform called Whatnot is. I have zero idea what that is. All I know is we had a bunch of Pokemon cards growing up, and you've chastised your mother over and over publicly, time and time again, for her getting rid of the Pokemon cards. I don't know what this was, but as we said, as Jess said, he was making $11.5 million in sales on that. So back playing football again, back to the grind of being sore on Mondays instead of just selling Pokemon cards and making money.
Not a bad fallback plan, though. So
Yeah. My lifelong dream of ripping off people with Pokemon cards is crashed and burned. I must go back to my second passion. Assaulting grown men legally on the football field with my body. What a time to be alive. Going to be very interesting to watch and see if he goes out there now and what kind of chirps would be associated with being in the Pokemon cards. Honestly, I wonder if he'll get other guys, because he's not the only guy that's a card-carrying nerd around the NFL. Right. And I say that as a term of endearment. We see plenty of guys that are into, Magic the Gathering, or play any of those like MMORPG games and stuff like that. So I'm sure he'll have company. I wonder if we'll have people that have questions. And maybe much like we saw Billy McFarland rise from the ashes of Firefest, maybe we haven't seen the last of Blake Martinez just yet. We will wait and see. Jesse, though, let's get to the third right now, because sometimes we hear the phrase all the time, "Be your own people." I'm amazed how often professional athletes' children openly shade their fathers or mothers in favor of better players on the court.
Yeah, so in this case, it's A.J. Brown's nephew. So A.J. Brown having, an absolutely historic season, crushing it. But he took to Twitter to say, "My nephew favorite player, Justin Jefferson. LOL, it be your own family. Gonna see if Jet get him something for Christmas because I'm not." So he's basically saying, okay, if that's your favorite player, then let's see if he gets you a good Christmas present, because I'm not doing it.
Honestly, chestnut checkers move right here. Get to pawn that off right now. Should have tagged Justin Jefferson, because while I know Justin Jefferson's trying to get back on the field, he's got a lot of other things going on here. Who can say no to that plea from a kid? And then you get Justin Jefferson to actually outsource your Christmas gift here. And so A.J. Brown comes up the winner, because I'm sure J.J. will break him off something nice.
Oh, for sure.
So I can't get on you and your brother Jake, because when my career ended, Mike, you were 4 and Jake was 3. So that's not really the time to ask who your favorite football player is. I would have hoped at that point you would have said Dad, because you didn't really know any better. But I'll ask you this. Since you got into this business, who has been your favorite talk show host or broadcaster?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's no doubt, the way I've modeled my game, obviously, the name that I've carried with this, it all definitely leans to my favorite broadcaster, Stu Gatz. I mean, the guy's been like a father to me ever since I joined this media game here. He took me under his wing. He showed me the ways of the world. I really consider myself the Stu Gatz Jr. of sports talk, even now that we're both at the DraftKings network. He's really been an important figure in my life. I can't possibly thank him enough for everything he's helped giving me, going all the way back to our days of the 28-hour fantasy marathon at ESPN.
It be your own family. It be your own family.
I've enjoyed this time with you, Mike, and our time seems to have ended now that you stuck the knife in and twisted it as well.
Wow.
It's weird. Sometimes Stu Gatz, he pulls me in close. We embrace his little sausage fingers, and I slowly whisper Dad, and he whispers Son in my ear, and it really cements the bond. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.